Oh, my baby gone.
When Barry McGee was working on this enormous wall painting in 1994, he encountered a lot of people who were drinking on the sides of the street, the homeless population. He wanted to have some sort of exchange with them that would be meaningful rather than just giving them loose change. He actually bought their empty night train bottles or Thunderbird bottles, these empty liquor bottles that they would drink with and talk to him while he was painting. So when he went home, he had this huge collection of empty liquor bottles, and so he decided to paint portraits of each of their owners on the bottles themselves. So the bottle clusters become this conversation that he had with the homeless population while he was making this painting, but they also become this community and this exemplification of the street in and of themselves.
You know my...
In the early 90s, Barry McGee did a lot of work using recycled letterpress trays. He had a job at a printing company where they did a lot of letterpress work, and the little individual letters are put into a kind of a tin tray and held there with kind of a vise. But at a certain point, the printing company shifted from analog to digital, and so they gave Barry all these old tin printing trays, which Barry very resourcefully decided to use as frames for some of his prints and drawings, and also as surfaces for some of his paintings. And his approach, though, was not to take each individual tray and just stick it on the wall like you'd expect to see a painting or a drawing, but to group the trays into large clusters. And this particular installation that we have here in the exhibition recreates the approach that he took at his very important exhibition at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in the early 1990s, where he covered an entire wall with these printing trays, and on the wall, maybe just a few of them in this large cluster would have had a painting on the back or a drawing or etching embedded in the middle.
You know, me and my little girl got up this morning. She said she wanted to freeze the deal. Told her ice Bob licking, baby.
Street Market was a collaboration that Barry McGee created with Todd James and Stephen Powers, who worked with him quite often in that time. Instead of creating like a traditional gallery installation, they created this amazing replica of a back street of San Francisco or the Bronx or Brooklyn, where you find all these kind of jumbled mom and pop shops filled with random items. And so they wanted to create these this kind of bodega, this mom and pop shop filled with items in which would be completely uncanny and not useful to anyone when they walked in on the streets. So Street Market was an extraordinarily successful exhibition because everybody would come into the gallery, have to take off their stilettos, and walk around in this weird kind of junkyard aesthetic with all these bodegas filled with random cans of stuff and products that you wouldn't find anywhere else.
Over the years, Barry McGee's art has become more and more colorful and has really taken on a greater and greater degree of abstraction. And this piece is really a great example of this shift from the figurative and monochrome earlier works to this later work, which is really very ebullient and energetic and lively, and feels almost utopian in its cheerful colors and whatnot. And this particular piece is a very, very large site-specific wall painting that's actually a kind of mosaic. If you look at it very closely, you can see it's made out of thousands of tiny, tiny little pieces, each of which have been applied individually to create this overall composition. And the image itself is something that Barry has said reminds him a little bit of the kind of wall mural you might see in a public library in some suburban neighborhood, that kind of sort of strange, sort of kitschy, kind of good-looking, kind of bad mural. And he really loved that and was attracted to it. And so we have one of our own here in the show.
Yeah, I need that $100.